Good morning, viewers. Jai Hind. I'm Major Mohammed Ali Shah, and I'm very proud and privileged, and it's a matter of great honor to have a very, very special guest. Well, I say very special guest for various reasons to have this guest with us, and of course, renowned personality. He needs no introduction. We all know him, and especially in the IIT, in the management circles, in the boarding school circles, in the corporate circles. We all, I'm talking about none other than Mr. Zaheer Shah. A bit, though he needs no introduction, as I just said, I'll just tell you a bit about Mr. Zaheer Shah. He has been a consistent topper right from school. Something very, very similar between the one thing we have in common actually between Mr. Zaheer Shah and myself, that we both have been toppers in school. And he was a topper from front, that's a different thing, and I was a topper from behind. That's the only difference otherwise. He cracked the IIT without taking any coaching and did very well over there. He won the best debater in school. He was consistently topping in academics. He was outstanding in dramatics. And when he went to IIT, he was the president of the Gymkhana Club. And he has done exceedingly well in his corporate career, being an engineer, a chemical engineer, and thereafter making a mark in the corporate sector, being the CEO of a British multinational company. He is also the Indian community leader in Egypt. In fact, he was recently conferred with a presidential award by the President of India, Mr. Kovind, for that. And sir, welcome and thank you very much for taking your time for us, sir.
Thank you very much, Ali. It's a privilege for me to be on your YouTube because, as I told you earlier, I was a little hesitant about who would be interested in listening to my life story, not being a celebrity, unlike all the others you have interviewed before. But anyway, the pleasure is entirely mine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And you are somebody who I have known for 42 years, and I have really idolized you, and I've seen your journey, and I've seen the time when you had visited us in Delhi when we were staying in Arjun Vihar, and that time someone who I have really, really been very, very intrigued and always got into very engaging conversation. Sir, if you could tell us a bit about your childhood, though I know quite a lot about it, but I'm sure our viewers would like to know. And as very modestly and in a very humble way, you said you're not a celebrity. Well, I think you are my superhero because also my father tells me that when they were growing up, he was always told by his parents that should be like Zaheer. That is what you should emulate. And they all always aspire to be like you. So we would like to know a bit about your childhood, sir. We know that you grew up in a boarding school in Nainital, St. Joseph's College. A bit about your boarding school days there, sir.
Well, thank you, Ali. That's very flattering, you know. As you know, and I hope your viewers know that I'm one of the three brothers, and we all spent our childhood in the boarding school. Memories of that are still very fresh and very much alive because, it was a transformational period of our lives. Our parents sacrificed everything they could and actually led a very austere life in order to ensure that the three of us got the best education in school. And for me, at least, and I'm sure for Zamir and Nasir also, they were the people that we looked up to the most when we were kids. As far as school was concerned, you might be surprised to hear that during the time I was in school, I resented it a lot for the very simple reason that I thought that the regimentation and the discipline imposed on us was very, very harsh. In retrospect, I must tell you, I think my opinion then was mistaken because now I look back on those years and I see that the values which the school inculcated in all of us have really held us in good stead all our lives and have actually, to a large extent, made us what we are. Uh, the values which I talk about, some of them are very simple, a respect for punctuality, uh, mixing with all the others, admiring physical fitness, and generally leading a very disciplined life. So I'm very grateful for those 10 years which I thought were very difficult, but I'm very grateful for that period because they were to a large extent responsible for what all three of us brothers have been able to accomplish in our lives.
So the foundation of you three brothers, starting you being the eldest, Mr. Zaheer Shah, thereafter Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, and the youngest one being Mr. Nasiruddin Shah, the illustrious actor. So I am aware of the fact that you gave your initial lessons, as Nasir Saab always says that his initial lessons in acting were actually given by you. So tell us a bit about that, sir. That's very interesting.
Yes, it always flatters me when Nasir says that, but it's actually a fact. I think he was preparing for an elocution competition or probably a role in Merchant of Venice, if I remember correctly. And his first acting lesson from me was in reciting Shylock's. Am I sorry, I forget it now.
A
Had
pound of
not a Jew
cash.
eyes, had not a
He
Jew
has
hands.
He has
Oh,
hindered me and disgraced me,
dimension.
500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my
Yes,
nation,
yes,
thwarted my bargains. And
yeah,
what's the reason? I'm
yes.
a Jew. Hath not a
And
Jew eyes, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt by the same weapon? If you tickle us, do not laugh. If you prick us, do not bleed. And that's a very, very good speech, sir. Sir.
well, that's what it was. And it's very ironic that when we were in school, poor Nasir didn't get a chance to go on the stage, for various reasons. But I got the Best Actor award in
Okay.
school in my final year. So maybe some of that thespian talent is sort of in our genes. Uh,
That's superb, sir.
Unfortunately, I don't know why. When I moved on to IIT, I concentrated more as a public speaker. Even though do say it myself, I was quite a brilliant and a very fiery debater. And unfortunately, I didn't follow up things on the stage. I just let it go. Maybe if I had, things would have turned out differently.
Yes, sir. Sir, the three of you, the three musketeers, and in fact, there's a photograph in our drawing room of the three brothers. And, ladies and gentlemen, for those who do not know, as Mr. Zahir Shah is the elder brother of my father. So, as it is anybody, like everyone else, I like this their father, right? And father's elder brother. So, you can imagine the status quo. And especially for me, I'm totally in awe of the gentleman I'm speaking to right now. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, the three of you brothers, when you were in school, you excelled, especially in academics. Yes, you won the best actor in debates, but particularly you were outstanding and exceptional in academics, and hence you went to IIT. Your younger brother, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, was outstanding in sports. In fact, he was a national boxer, so much to the extent that he named me Muhammad Ali, in fact. And the youngest, Nasir Saab, was always he couldn't get a chance in dramatics in St. Joseph's. So when he shifted schools, when he went to St. Anselm, he got chances to act in plays. So you went to IIT, the second one went to NDA, the third one ran away from home, but subsequently went to Aligarh Muslim University, polished his Urdu over there, went to the National School of Drama and the Film Institute in Pune. So your foundation has been very, very strong. So tell us a bit about your parents who actually sacrificed so much in actually giving you all the best of education. Because I see a lot of similarity between you and your father. I had not met him. I didn't have the honor and the fortune of meeting him. But the photograph that I see a lot of at least looks wise. I see a lot of similarity between you and your father, sir.
Yes, Ali, my father has always been my hero. As a boy and even now. In fact, I get very emotional when I think about him. Actually, he was in his own way a saint. He led a very simple life. His life was dedicated to ensuring that his three sons got the best. He was in the provincial civil service, which was never a great paymaster. So my parents really had to struggle to put all three of us through the school. But a lot of people don't know. My father actually had a very interesting life which he never talked about and which very few people know about. He was very proud of his Afghan heritage. So after he finished his schooling here, he decided that he would go back to the homeland, that is Afghanistan. And because he was very fluent in English, when he went back to Kabul, unbelievable as it is, he was hired by His Majesty King Amanullah to teach English to the royal princes. And that is the job that he did in Afghanistan until 1921, when a coup deposed King Amanullah. Amanullah was exiled to Rome, and my father went with the royal family to Rome. And from there, after spending some time in Rome, he went to England. His time in England is actually shrouded in mystery. He didn't talk about it a lot, and the three of us have often discussed about this. And Nasir's theory, very interestingly, was that probably there was a romantic interest involved, and that's why he spent so much time in England. Anyway, he cultivated his contacts there and then returned to India with a commendation letter from a gentleman who had been the British governor of the United Provinces. In those days, commendation letters worked a lot. And because of that commendation letter, the British offered him a job in the provincial civil service. And that's where he stayed all his life, mainly in UP, and later on in the last stage of his career in Ajmer. Uh, he had a fantastic sense of humor, you know, uh, which he hardly ever exhibited, let me say. And he was not a very demonstrative man. He would recoil at the prospect that somebody was physically close to him and would hug him, etc. But I still remember the great warm feeling of his hand as he held my hand and helped me to cross a road, for example. My mother herself was also, I think it was a little difficult for her to lead the kind of austere existence which my father led because of what he was doing for us. But she coped very well, and she was also a saint in her own right. I know that all the ladies who have met her have always spoken very highly of her and of how angelic she was. So that's how I remember my parents.
So that is very, very nice. And I have read the autobiographies of both your brothers, of Lieutenant Zaheer Shah, the Sarkari Musliman, and Nasir Saab, and then One Day. And I've read about your parents in that, and especially the part in England where the part in the Sarkari Musliman where General Shah writes that he didn't speak about his time in England much, but he remembers this part where he had to write to his parents to bail him to get him back to India because he had potatoes in his shoes. Like the shoes were torn, so he had to insert newspapers there and to walk. So that was the state that but he had quite an adventure. He sailed off to Italy, and I've read the entire adventure. It was a very, very adventurous, I would say, a world trip in a way. And there was an incident where he was sentenced to death. Your father was sentenced to death. He was tied to a camel, where to the cannon, and where the cannonman, in fact, the moment he heard he was a Sayyid, he stepped aside. He said he took the cloth off your father's head, and he said he tied himself up. And he said, "You please, I'll give you some time. Just scoot from here." So, could you tell us a bit about that incident, sir?
Yeah, that was. I'm not very clear about all the details, Ali, but I think it was as part of the revolution which overthrew King Amanullah. And since he was in the king's entourage, I suspect he was targeted because of that by the then ruler. I mean, the famous Bacha Sakka, who was king only, who was actually the son of a water bishti, a water seller, and who became the king of Afghanistan because of the backing of the mullahs. So it was probably one of Bacha Sakka's people who did that, not realizing that he was dealing with the Sayyid, and then came to regret it when he learned about that fact. Yeah, it saved his life, definitely.
So, in the late 90s, when my father was commanding a brigade in Manipur, And he was told by a very senior officer over there that, we have a certificate in the museum over here that King Amanullah Khan and your father, Ali Muhammad Shah, had visited this area and during the World War time, and they took out documents and certificates and pictures. And there we could see, very proudly, we could see. And my father, he got it all framed, got it preserved, and they all kept. You've seen them in a house, in fact, as part of the family history. So your parents were engaged for the longest number of years. I mean, and but then your father sailed away. He went abroad. So tell us a bit about that. For how many years? Why did, if at all you have any knowledge about that, why did their engagement?
Yes, yes. See, the Afghan clan in India had a lot of internal rivalries. Brother against brother and cousin against cousin. Doesn't it sound familiar with what's happening in Afghanistan now? I think it's in the Afghan blood. So, my father's paternal, that is my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, and my maternal great grandfather were not the best of friends. In fact, there was rivalry within the clan. So when my father proposed and asked for Ammi's hand, it was turned down because my Parnana, not my Nana, was not in favor that his granddaughter should be going to somebody who was a rival in the clan. So Baba was turned down, and he had a very interesting life. Nobody knows he actually married somebody else.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
yes, but it never worked out. Uh, and I still remember, when I was a child, there used to be a money order of 50 rupees going every day from him to a mysterious lady who I didn't know who it was. Later on, I realized that his was his way of supporting the lady who he had married for some time and then separated from, for reasons which at the moment we are not clear as to what actually happened. But after that, after waiting for, I think, what, 10 years or so, he went back and asked for Ammi's hand again. And this time, the old man who had objected had actually passed away. So my Nana, my maternal grandfather, agreed to the proposal, and that's how they got married. So yes, he loved her dearly and waited for 15 or 10 years or 15 years before he could go muster up the courage to go and ask for her hand again.
So, and I'm sorry to bridge on this topic, but when you were born with a twin brother, in fact,
Yes,
who didn't survive with us for too long. And
yes.
how would it have been growing up with a twin brother, and if you were identical twins, and he always making up for whatever. If you were good in academics, and what if he wasn't good, and he would take the credit for? How would it have been to have grown up with a twin brother, actually?
Uh, you know, I've never really tried to sit down and imagine this scenario, but it makes for some interesting thoughts. Life would have been, I think, very interesting, and to some extent, it might have been difficult. Uh, you may know from your dad that when we were kids, we were terrific rivals with each other. Especially I remember when we used to play cricket with each other. Oh my God, we were at each other's throats all the time. With sort of Nasir at that time more on the sidelines and seeing the rivalry between the two elder brothers. Uh, but in a way, I think it was a very healthy rivalry because I think it enabled us, all of us, both Zamir and me, to strive for the best in what we were good at. So if I had had an identical brother, I don't know whether he would have been a rival or whether he would have been a close friend. Uh, you know, it's problematical. One doesn't know how it would have turned out, but yes, it would have made my life very interesting, and especially if, for example, he had qualified for the same school and gone to IIT. I mean, we would have been quite a sensation. It's a pity. It's a pity it didn't turn out that way.
So, so, so tell us your days about IIT. You firstly you cracked it without any coaching, and normally people take a lot of coaching, and despite coaching, many people cannot make it. In fact, when I was in IIM Calcutta, we had a lot of people coming from IIT over there. They come, especially where you were, IIT Kharagpur, and The moment I would meet anyone from IIT Powai, IIT Delhi, all right, okay, I would have the soft corner. But the moment anyone would say I'm from IIT Kharagpur, I would straight away hug that person. It was just that connect, yes, that I have with you, and I would straight away, oh, my uncle is from IIT Kharagpur. So tell us your days about at IIT Kharagpur first. But before that, we'd like to answer whether it is essential if you want to crack the IIT. Many youngsters today want to crack the IIT. How essential is it to take coaching and then try for IIT, or you are a living example who took no coaching. So how important? Yeah.
Yes, but Ali, there's a big difference between what 60 years ago and now. Even at that time, I know it was a competitive examination. It wasn't easy to get in. I think a few lakhs of boys and girls used to sit for the exam, and only I think 100 or 120 were selected. So yes, it was difficult even then. But I think the difficulties now are just enormous. I mean, you have lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of kids who are sitting for the exam. The competition is so severe that under the present circumstances, I don't think you have an alternative but to actually get coaching. And I think our life was very much easier. And yes, I did have to struggle. I did have to work very hard after school to catch up on my maths, especially because the higher secondary syllabus at that time used to be much more advanced than the senior Cambridge syllabus, which we did, especially in maths and sciences. So, in the intervening 6 months after finishing senior Cambridge and sitting for the IIT entrance exam, I really swatted like hell. I mean, I worked on my maths and took private tuitions actually, although I didn't go for coaching classes as such. So, it was a real relief when I learned that I had actually made it. As far as the days in IIT are concerned, Ali, I can say without hesitation, they were the 5 best years of my life. For one thing, after the strict regimentation and boot camp atmosphere in school, the freedom which IIT allowed us was unbelievable. We were our own masters. We could do what we wanted. If we wanted to attend classes, we attended classes. If we didn't want to, we cut classes and did addas. We were totally at liberty and responsible for ourselves. In fact, there was a joke amongst us at that time. Say, one friend asked the other, "Hey, aren't you going for the electrical engineering class today?" So he says, "Yeah, sure, I'm going, man. I need the sleep." So, but you know, after 2 years there, Ali, I realized that I was in the wrong place. You may be surprised to hear this, but then, engineering thing and the technical aspects didn't gel with me. You know, I was more of a generalist, and I took actually more interest in the humanities and history than I took then in the engineering sciences. So, but it was too late to change my mind. I was already in it. I had finished 2 years, and then I made up my mind. I decided I'm going to go through with this because my education here will help me a lot, and it did. But I had decided that I was not going to go into an engineering career. My dream at that time was to actually sit for the Indian Foreign Service exam, but that I couldn't do because the rules at that time didn't allow technical graduates to sit for the IFS exam.
Oh, oh,
So
oh.
as a second option, I decided, okay, what I'm going to do is enter corporate business life as a management trainee and make it as a business executive because I just felt it within me that I had the ability and the aptitude to do a good job there and to be able to lead people in a corporate environment.
So
But
what could be
having
the
said
reason?
that,
Right.
sorry,
So
sorry, Ali.
what could be the reason why they could not permit a technical graduate to sit for the IFS exams?
I have no idea, Ali. At that time, there were a lot of arcane and obscure rules, dictated by the government for some reason, and you just had to obey them. That's all. So, I mean, and I'm really glad I went through with that because those years were brilliant. I made friends who are still lifelong friends. I learned the value of analytical thought, and how to be rational in my thinking. I flowered as a debater, so it was a great time for me. And when I graduated, I aspired for a corporate job in one of the big business houses. In those years, the best you could do was to be employed either by Hindustan Lever or by DCM, which was a big company then, on a princely salary of 800 rupees a month. I mean, that was considered really princely. So Hindustan Lever offered me a management trainee's job, but I declined it because they offered me a production job, and that is something that I didn't want to do. So had I gone in, life would might have been different. I might have been a star in Hindustan Lever. But as a second option, I took a job as a marketing trainee, a management trainee in marketing with what was then called the Sarabhai Management Corporation in Ahmedabad. And that's how my corporate journey started.
That is superb, sir. And but one thing for sure, you would have definitely made a very, very good diplomat. Your brother has been a diplomat to the Gulf, General Shah, to Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Kuwait, and you are helping out the expats as the Indian community leader in Egypt in your way. That is no less than that. So that's and you're playing a fight, and you have, and it's in fact you won a President's Award for that matter just before the COVID. So it really speaks highly, and you certainly so now tell us your shift, your gradual shift after you picked up a job as a management trainee from engineering to the corporate, because to reach the high echelons, it is very important, they say, to have an MBA degree. You had not studied and you had not done management formally, but you learned on ground, on the job. So now, how was it? Because many of your batchmates, some of your batchmates have been my professors at IIMs, like Professor Anjan Roy Chaudhary, and his son is a very dear friend, Rohan Roy Chaudhary, in fact. So, and you all have your reunions regularly, and where you go off to some cruise or some nice holiday. I've seen the pictures of that. So, tell us about your shift from engineering to management, and then ultimately reaching the top echelon in management, becoming a CEO of a British multinational company.
Yeah, actually, Ali, I think I just took to corporate life like a fish to water. And let me tell you that in the 40 years that I was in corporate service, never for a day did I feel that I was disadvantaged because I didn't have an MBA. You
Okay.
know, I competed with all my colleagues who were MBA graduates on a firm footing. And I think the great thing about corporate life was, and I hope still is, that finally what you do, your merit, and the result that you're able to accomplish, and how you handle difficult tasks, all that matters. Doesn't matter whether you're an MBA or whether you're not an MBA. And as I told you, I think my 5 years in IIT had equipped me mentally and intellectually in a big way to be able to cope with the corporate life. So once I started my journey, I stayed with the Sarabhais for 2 years. Then various things about the policies that they pursued and the environment there didn't make me very happy. So I jumped after 2 years and joined a small British multinational in India called Courts of India. Uh, my career progress there was very, very conventional, very standard. I served there for 8 years, kind of worked my way up to a regional manager level, and then again, looking for greener pastures, jumped ship again to join the company which was at that time called Madura Coats. Again, for a better compensation package, to be frank with you. But then I stayed with Coats for the rest of my corporate life, about almost 40 years. Uh, my career started on a very conventional note. Every 2 years you got your promotion, you moved up, etc. So after I had been there for about 14 years, I decided that things financially, especially, were not going according to plan. You know, I'm talking of the 1990s before the great liberalization took place, and corporate salaries were very low. By that time, I had 3 kids, and I was finding it difficult to maintain a lifestyle which I wanted on a salary of 15,000 rupees a month. So I decided I have to go abroad to earn the big bucks. And I applied for a job in Muscat and got accepted by the Bahwan Automotive Group on a salary, which I thought then was great, of imagine 75,000 rupees a month.
My goodness. Even
You
at that
know,
time. Oh God.
you, but so luckily for me, when I put in my papers to courts, I got a call from a gentleman who had been managing director of Courts of India in my early years, asking me why I wanted to leave. It's surprising. One would never expect this kind of a personal gesture. His gentleman's name, he was a Scotsman. His name was Bill Drummond. So Bill asked me, "Ki, why is it that you're leaving?" And I told him, "Sir, it's just the money. Don't feel I'm earning enough and I want to go abroad and work." And his answer surprised the hell out of me, Ali. He said, "Okay, Zahir, if that's the reason why you're leaving, if Coates gives you a job abroad, will you take it?" I couldn't believe my ears. And I told him, "Absolutely, Mr. Drummond. There's no reason why I should be leaving Coates otherwise." And so that's how my movement came about. Coates UK got in touch with me. I went for an interview to London and I was offered the job of general manager of a company in Mauritius, which was owned by Coates and which was called New Island Clothing. So that's how I landed up in the paradise island of Mauritius, spent 4 years there, and then had a falling out with the gentleman who was my boss in London and was asked to put in my papers.
Oh
So
God.
after 4 years in courts in Mauritius, I returned once again to India without a job.
Oh God.
But surprisingly, the good that you do in your life sometimes pays off. And I think Madura Courts remembered the fact that I had been a good manager. So after about 6 months back in India, much to my surprise, Madura Courts got in touch with me and said, "Hey, you're at a loose end. How about coming back to Madura Courts?" So after having fired by Courts UK, I got re-employed by Madura Courts as vice president of international trading. And after 2 years in that job, they contacted me again and they said, "Hey, there's a vacancy in the company Coates Egypt. We've started that company and it's a basket case. We want you to go and have a look at it and tell us what do you think is wrong because we're thinking of closing it."
Okay. Okay.
So at that time, Ali, I was on a temporary assignment in Turkey with Coates. So anyway, I made it to Cairo. I stayed there for about 3 weeks, nosed around in the company, and finally sent a report to London saying, "No, no, it can work, and we're not just doing things right." Well, the reply that I got was, "Well, Mr. Shah, please stay there and make it work." So I became the MD of a company which was a basket case and which it was my job to save. This was 1998. I had to do some very harsh things. First of all, I was not happy with the caliber of the local management. So, believe it or not, I fired the entire marketing department of the company from top to bottom. And I moved a manager from Madura Coats India with whom I had worked as my marketing manager. So we struggled for 3 or 4 years, but then Coats Egypt became one of the top 5 companies in the Coats group.
Wow.
And then we started to spread our wings. We cultivated export markets. We took away Middle East export markets, which were handled by Madura Coats, and made them markets of Coats Egypt. We extended our footprint to Jordan and to Syria and to Kenya and to Tanzania. Then came one of the most important parts and interesting parts of my assignment. I was asked to open a coats company in Israel, which I did. I set up a coats company there, but I was managing it from Cairo and I was chief executive of Coats Egypt and Coats Israel. And I used to travel to Israel for 1 week every month for 6 years because I was overseeing the company. It was a
And which year
terrifically
was this? Around which years was this?
We started, I became MD of Courts Egypt in 1998, and I started Courts Israel in 2005. Uh, Let me tell you, Israel is a lovely country. I loved going there, especially people who have many of our things historical. It's such a fantastic country. Jerusalem is an unbelievable city. So, all in all, Israel was a great place. I wouldn't say the same for the people of Israel. You know, I saw the deprivations and the hardships to which the Palestinians were put through. I saw the construction of that separation wall between the so-called occupied territories and Israel, and it made me a fervent supporter of the Palestinian cause. Although I must tell you, in my early years, especially in college, I was a great sympathizer of Israel because I took in all the propaganda about how Israel was the bastion of democracy in the wild Arab Mid East. You know, I became a fervent supporter of Palestine, but I loved Israel. I loved the land, and it was a very interesting assignment.
So, sir, you have traveled across so many countries, so many continents, and you've had vast experiences. And as I said, traveling is the best education actually one can get. One doesn't get
Absolutely,
education, sir. And
absolutely.
sir, and like your grandnephew, I would say, Ayan Ali Shah, who was incidentally also the head boy of Lawrence School, Lovedale. This is the school that where your son Zaheer Shah also studied, and in fact, my he was my best friend. He still is, and we've had some great times together. And his voice, in fact, let me tell you, as a child in my growing years, I would find three voices only to be the best voices. Okay. One was, of course, my father's, yours, and Nasir Saab. Three of your voices. I was like, this is what an actual deep voice is. And this is the kind of voice I would aspire when I would grow up to get. So Zafar, in fact, I would say he has the best voice I have heard. Really. And you would feel happy to know that I think that he perhaps somewhere has a better voice than you as well, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, no, I'm very proud of my son, Ali. In fact, I visited him in Dubai recently and I told him, I call him Zed. That's the nickname. I never call him Zafar. I told him, Zed, at the age of 50, you're doing a hell of a lot better than I was doing at the age of 40. And nothing makes me happier. I'm so proud of you and I'm so proud of what you have achieved in your age. Yeah,
You meant
so it's a
you
God
meant the other
given
way
gift.
around.
Yes, he
You meant
has
the
a
other way
nice
around.
one.
Therefore, at the age of 40, you're doing what you could do at 50. You meant the other way around, sir.
That's right, yes.
Right. So superb, sir. So then, after you actually came to Egypt, now you are the leader of the Indian community in Egypt. Tell us a bit about your role as a leader of the Indian community in Egypt, sir. What are
Yes,
your
yes,
responsibilities?
Ali, it's only recently that I have stepped down as the chairman of the Indian Community Association in Egypt. I was chairman of the association for the last 7 years. The purpose of of the association is very simple. It is to take care of the interests of the Indian community in Egypt, to make them together, to bring them together, to organize various activities, to help out Indian expatriates who get into trouble, and so forth. So it's a kind of a social service to look after the community. And in fairness to the community, I must tell you that the presidential award which came our way was not actually personally for me. It was for the work that the Indian Community Association is doing. And because I was the head of the Community Association, it was my privilege and honor to receive the award from the president on behalf of the Indian community.
Sir, that is very nice of you to say that. In fact, this itself also proves a point that, what I had learned in the army on leadership from your brother itself is the boss takes the credit, the leader gives it away. So you are a true leader in the true sense. The boss says I, the leader says we. The boss says, let's get there. The boss says, get there on time. The leader says, let's get there ahead of time together. The boss lets his people know where he stands. The leader lets his people know where they all stand. The boss takes the credit, the leader gives it away, and you are a true leader in the true sense, sir. So you are
Uh,
also
uh,
a very
Thank you, Ali. You might be interested to know that I haven't shed my leadership role totally. In fact, now I and two other friends started the Indian Golf Society in Egypt to encourage golf among the Indian expatriates. And today I'm the chairman of the Indian Golf Society. So I still have something to do, although I have retired as the community chairman.
Retired but not tired, and that's why you are doing this role, sir. So tell us about your induction into golf, how you got introduced to the game, and how you were bitten by the bug, and how golf has helped you even now in keeping yourself fit all the time, sir.
You know, Ali, induction into golf is entirely the responsibility of your dad. When I was, remember, I was posted in Calcutta and he told me, look, why don't you take up golf? And I was kind of wishy-washy about it. So he said, okay, I'll give you my old golf set. Right. So he passed on his old golf set to me. And when I received that golf set, I said, oh God, now I'm stuck. I really have to do this. And I started, but I was never an enthusiastic golfer, Ali, to be honest with you. But once I started working, the guy who was my boss, right, told me, if you want to get along in corporate life, man, do what is right. Come and play golf. And I told him, no, boss, I'm not interested. He told me, okay, if you're not interested, come and walk the bloody course with me. So twice he made me walk 18 holes with him. And finally, to assuage him, I said, okay, I'll take it up. And then I took lessons. And then, once the bug bites you, it's there for life. And that's what actually happened. The bug bit me, and I became very passionate, though, although I must say, not a great golfer. Nothing at the level of your dad, who
No,
at the peak of his career was a 14 handicapper. The best that I've been able to achieve is 17. At the moment, yeah, with advancing age, you can't expect your handicap to go down. So now I'm playing to 19, but I'm happy with what I'm doing. I love the game and I love administering the Indian Golf Society. It's God's
so,
blessing for us to be able to play this game.
sir, in fact, your wife, Mrs. Abir Shah, she an avid golfer herself. And in fact, just yesterday, I believe you had this tournament where you did really well again. So
Yeah.
was it that you got her introduced to golf, or she was a golfer when you met her already?
Oh, no, not at all. Ali, you might find this and others might find it amusing, but when I was courting her and we decided, okay, we're going to tie the knot, I told her, hey, Abir, not so fast. There are two things you have to do. One is learn to drive a car because of your own self interest. And the second is learn to play golf because I don't want a golf widow as my wife. So she took it up seriously. She started the game, and that's how she also. And now the bug has bitten her too, although after a very long time. And now
Absolutely.
she's more enthusiastic than me.
Absolutely. I keep seeing the pictures on Facebook, where you won a tournament here. So one more thing I
Yeah,
would like to
we combined well. Last year we won the doubles Indian Golf Society match play competition as a team. She and I partnered and won the championship.
Lovely, sir. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That is what can be a better team than this, in fact. So, also, when you were in Muscat, how much time did you spend in Muscat, sir?
No, I didn't go to Muscat, Ali. As I told you, I got offered the job, but then before I could even move to Muscat, then courts got in touch with me and offered me the Mauritius assignment. So I didn't
Right.
go to Muscat at all. Yeah.
All right. Because that was one aspect which I wasn't familiar with. That's why I got intrigued. That's why I said, let me ask you about that. So also the Scotsman who had a soft corner for you, for your work, I would say rather, who helped you to go to Mauritius. So now, of course, you would remember him and you remember his name also after so many years. Is that the reason why you have a soft corner for Scotsman and your son-in-law, Sophie's husband? When Sophie decided to get married to David, you readily agreed,
Yes,
sir.
I know. I have a long association with Scotland, starting from the fact that the Coates was a Scottish company. And we were fortunate, I was fortunate enough to have two Scottish managing directors with whom I built a terrific rapport. Bill Drummond, who offered me the Mauritius job, and then John Shaw, who was MD and who's now still in India, and part of the corporate scene. And yes, it's because of that. And when I visited Scotland, I love the country, the land. It's beautiful, and of course, I always enjoy a good peg of single malt Scotch whiskey. That's another reason to for a tie to Scotland. And of course, now the younger son-in-law is a Scotsman. So yes, it's been a long relationship and a very nice relationship.
And they make a very handsome couple, sir, and God bless them. In fact, Sophie is my cousin, my dear friends, and one of the prettiest girls and the amazing girls, are very dear friends. We are same age, in fact. In the year 1997, I was in Lawrence School, Lovedale, and Zafar, sir, son, was my junior. So I had come to Bangalore to appear for the National Defense Academy examination. And that is the time when we were in school. We were in class 12th, right? So the craze, you can imagine, the late teens for pop concerts. And that time, Boyzone concert had come to Bangalore. And Sophie was going for that. And she was saying, Ali, come along, we'll have fun. But that time, Zaheer Shah sir was going for this dinner and he was taking me to this five-star hotel. So he said, and of course, me being this good boy, I would rather go with my uncle for dinner. And I went ahead with, and Sophie was like, and Sophie's friends were calling me, dude, you ought to be kidding, man. You got a chance to go on Boys Own concert, but you're going with Sophie's dad for dinner. Dude, you are something out of this world. Anyhow, so that's a different thing. And I remember this fond memory with you, and in fact with Sophie, you all looked after me so well at that time. So also, I would like to know that the three brothers, you, General Shah, Nasir Saab, all three of you are Hajis, incidentally, and all three of you are also President Award winners. Also, all three of you reached the pinnacles of success and reached the benchmark of success. You can say the altitude that one can go, to the height that one can go. Of course, Nasir Saab is Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and several national awards and Filmfare awards, and the whole world knows him. Zamir Saab, General Zamir Saab, Param Vishis Seva Medal, the highest award for distinguished service in the army. That's the Param. Like we have the Param Veer Chakra. So Param Vishish Seva Medal, the Sena Medal, and the Vishish Seva Medal. And of course, you also being awarded by the President of India, sir. And of course, reaching that. So, do you owe this success of all three of you to your foundation as children, which your parents gave you, to your schooling, to the Irish brothers, to your parents, or because you three had the fire in you to succeed and do well?
It's a combination. I always feel that we have all the three of us have always had the blessings and the dua of our parents. There is no doubt about it. Yes, schooling and the values imbued in us by the Christian brothers too played a very important part. But I think more than anything else, Ali, the three of us were singularly blessed in that we seem to have this very aspirational streak in our DNA, to try and be the best in whatever we did. I don't know how it came about, and I know it's very rare for three siblings to have that same attitude towards life that they must succeed. Some brothers and sisters have it, some don't. But I think we were singularly fortunate that God blessed us with this and put it in our DNA, and which also accounted in a large measure for our success. And I can't tell you how proud I am of my brothers and how privileged I always feel to be in the company of such super achieving brothers. It really makes me happy that, yes, in my own way, I have also been a success. But the two of them, what they have achieved is really, truly extraordinary. And it makes me really proud and happy.
So that's really overwhelming to hear. One thing my father always stresses upon is the gift of education is the greatest gift you can give to any child. And I see you, my father did that. My sister and I went to Lawrence School, Lovedale. My younger brother went to a boarding in Nainital, and my sister went to. We all had the best of education, in fact. And after that, we went to. In fact, I have the privilege to say that I have had the best education. I don't take the credit for that at all. I had no hand in that. I had no idea what schooling and all. It was like, for example, our names. We cannot take credit for a name that we have. It's our parents who have named us, but we can certainly take credit of the children who we have named. If the name is good, all the names are good, in fact. So now, so I went to Lawrence School, Lovedale, Ferguson College, Army, IIMs, and so it is similarly. I have seen you have imparted the best education to your children. Yasmin. Yasmin got went to the best of school, and she went to IHM Manipal, which is the best in hotel management. In fact, her husband Kiran Andikot is a he's doing exceedingly well. He's a hotelier, and he's a very very big name. In fact, so all three, Yasmin, Sophie, Zafar, you gave the best education. There were times even you would have had difficult times, as you mentioned that it was difficult to raise three children with that salary, so you had to move on to greener pastures. So tell us about educate the importance of educating a child, giving them the best that one can give from your side.
We just followed the example of my parents, right? Who always underlined the value of education, and it cannot be underestimated, right? Any country that progresses has to have a great educational system, and anybody who progresses in life has to have a great educational grounding. There is absolutely no doubt about it. In the last stages of his life, my dad, he passed away when he was 70, but I remember when he was about 68 or 69, he told me, I've never been wealthy and I'm not leaving the three of you anything, but I have given you the best gift which a parent can give his children. I have given you a good education, right? So make the best of it. And when I was in my last year in IIT, at that time, the job market in India was very, very poor. And all of us were actually really worried about what kind of jobs we'd be able to get. And I remember Baba telling me that, look, when you graduate, don't come to me and tell me, Baba, can you please speak to so and so and see if they can recommend me for a job? So I won't do it. Let's be very clear about it. I have given you the best I could, and now you're on your own.
The superb.
So,
So
yeah, see, those are lessons which you have to learn and you have to imbibe, and then not only imbibe, then put them in practice yourself in your own life. And I think that the great example which was shown to us by our father is something that all three of us have also aspired to follow.
superb, sir. Sir, you are one person who I can just go on and on and on and on conversing. You can talk about history, you talk about geography, you talk about politics, you talk about demography, you talk about anything. You talk about philosophy. So, lastly, I know, I mean, you are a very busy person. You have a time constraint as well. You have to go, but I would not like want to let you go without you answering one query which I have, which I've always had. In fact, I remember having this very intriguing conversation with you in Gurgaon a few years back about the law of attraction, the power of positive thinking, and about self hypnosis. When you were mentioning that if you visualize it, it will happen. It might take time, but it will happen. Whatever you think about yourself, we are nothing but a mere reflection of our thoughts. We can be what we want to be. And could you just throw some light upon that, because you explained that in a very, very beautiful, lucid way? Similarly, I would like our listeners to get something from there and take that home.
Yeah, the power of visualization is something that very few people actually know about. But I think it is one of the most powerful tools that any person can employ to get what he wants and to achieve and to go where he wants to go. I was fortunate enough that I was working with courts in Mauritius. I attended a workshop on this. They had organized this to inculcate this value amongst the managers. And I have always practiced it since then on a regular basis. Some of the things that you visualize, Ali, happen quickly. Some take a really long time, but you've got to stay with them. I don't mind telling you that some of the things that I have wanted to do and visualized have taken up to 20 years to come to fruition. But they've happened. They finally happened. So the great thing is to visualize and then to have faith that it's going to happen. Don't worry about how it's going to happen. Your mind finds that way. You have to be very clear and sincere that you want it to happen and it will happen, and visualize yourself as to what the situation will be when it happens, what you will be like, what your life will be like. And believe me, your mind without your knowing, finds its own way for you to get there. That's the important thing. You should never worry about, oh, how am I going to do it? I want to be a millionaire. How am I going to do it? Don't worry about how am I going to do it part. Just visualize what your life will be like if you're a millionaire. And you will find it will happen later or sooner.
You are absolutely right, sir. And in fact, what you told me, it was proved right, and it's proved even right, is being proved right now, right now. I had visualized at that time that sharing the screen with the three illustrious brothers who I have always idolized, and it really happened. I have had the honor and privilege of serving under command of your brother, General Shah. I was his ADC, and I have interviewed him, in fact, and I have shared the screen in the Tashkent files with Nasir Shah. I had shared the stage with him way back in school when I was in school in 1996 in this play, The Cane Mutiny Court Martial. I shared the screen with him almost 20 years later. In fact, and now I'm sharing the screen with you. So it's a dream come true for me. And so thank you so much for taking our time and truly appreciate it. And see, an hour has almost gone like this. I didn't even realize. But sir, thank you very much. And before we let you go, one last message you would like to give to the youth of India for being better citizens, as you always help out expats and foreigners and Indians who go abroad to Egypt, in fact, for that matter. Any last message from your side to them, sir?
Ali, if there is a message at all to the youth of India today, it is to request them, nay, not request them, to beg them to remember that we are all one. Indians, irrespective of caste, community, and creed, are all one. And if we destroy this value, we are destroying India as we know it. So please, youngsters, keep this in mind for the future and for the benefit of the country.
Sir, thank you very much. Very well said. Timely message over there, comment over there by Major Raw, who writes Jai Hind at the same time. So you said that absolutely right, sir. On that note, just please stay with us. I'll just end this broadcast. I would like to have a small chat with you. I'm just ending the broadcast. Thank you, friends, and please share it as much as you can. And please learn some pearls of wisdom from the great man, Mr. Zaheer Shah, who I have always idolized from my childhood. As a dream come true, as I said, right now, speaking to him, being in line with him on the conversation. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And I hope you have taken a lot of lessons on life from Mr. Zaheer Shah. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Ali.